Hey, I asked you for some questions. You sent me hundreds of questions and we're gonna get to them. Let's go. Hey guys, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Kevin Tetz with Paintucation here. I just want to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already, and we're going to continue to bring more of this type of content to you because honestly it was overwhelming. I put out a short and said, hey, send me some questions if you want to do some Q&A, some answering of those questions, and it was crazy the response we got. So it makes me feel like you guys want this type of information, so we're going to get to a bunch of them. Literally, we've got stacks. This might end up into a couple of different episodes, but I just wanted to say this. The reason that I do Paintucation is to try and help guys get their skill sets up, get their confidence up, and maybe even enter the trade. It's so important we have new people coming into this trades. That's what Paintucation is all about, at least in my mind. And in the meantime, if I can help you guys get out of a hole, maybe solve a little problem in one of your projects, that's a beautiful thing too. So subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. Let's get this content rolling. And it's not all going to be just Q&A. We're going to do extensive projects. We're going to do paint jobs. We're going to do stuff that is interesting and challenging for me, as well as entertaining and informative for you guys. So I'm so stoked and I'm so excited about it. Today's Q&A, I'm going to answer your questions, and I'll do my best on your handles and your names to address them and address you guys personally, because I feel like this is a conversation that's happening, and I hope that it goes on and on. So we're going to do that, and I've got some demos set up, and I'm going to try not to make it QVC and infomercially, but it's one thing to talk through a problem, but it's really a whole other thing to explain the process of solving a problem. So that's where I go. So we're going to get started, and I'm old, so I need my glasses. So a lot of today's information is going to be based off of fundamentals, and we're going to get started right here. So we've got categories. My girlfriend Judy has helped me with these, organize them, and we've got things separated into subcategories. So this is a big one. There's a lot of them. Spray gun fundamentals. So it's not all about spray guns. This is just about things that relate to that. All right, so here we go. First one. At SputnikJr.100. Okay. What type of air compressor would you recommend for a beginner that could possibly start out painting at home or outside? This is a loaded question. So really the answer is, what type of project are you going to be doing, whether you're spraying at home, outside, or in a professional spray booth? The spray environment has nothing to do with the type of compressor that you're looking for. I understand where you're coming from. This is, you want to crawl, walk, run. That's my favorite phrase. You want to start out small, get your skills up, get your power up, all that kind of stuff. So what would I recommend for a beginner that could possibly start out painting at home or outside? So the first thing I would say would be to keep your projects smaller. If you're painting a school bus, you need a ginormous honking compressor. You need a lot of CFM. You don't need so much pressure, you need CFM. That's what today's materials and spray guns demand. So you need a compressor that will fit the size of your project. Also, super important, whatever spray gun you have, we'll get into spray guns later and my preferences and the reason that I have my preferences, but you need to match and balance your spray gun with your compressor. So think about those things. A smaller project is going to be easier. A smaller compressor will handle a smaller project, and a gun that requires less CFM will operate properly with a smaller compressor. So my answer to you is this: balance your project, your spray gun, and your compressor all together. Make sure everything talks. Now keep on watching this because we address things like CFM and compressor requirements. So thanks for your question. Moving on. Okay. At I bleed blue ovals. I bleed blue ovals. Okay, that's kind of a tongue twist. I do too. But is a 26-gallon air compressor big enough for a DIY paint job? Again, same thing. Maybe. 26 gallons is not a lot of storage. So with a 26-gallon air compressor, you might have a 4 to 6 CFM motor. When you size your air compressors, the tank matters. The size of the tank matters. More stored air is better. But what really matters is the output of the compressor. So if you're talking about a DIY paint job, I'm just going to assume that you're talking about a full-size vehicle. There are requirements for a full-size vehicle. Here's my blanket recommendation. I learned this a long time ago. To do a full-size vehicle project, you need minimum 60-gallon tank. That way, your compressor can fill the tank, rest, fill the tank, rest, and so that the air coming out of the tank is cooler. In order for that to cycle properly and not run constantly, 100% duty cycle, you need at least a 5-horsepower compressor. 2-stage motor would be better, cast iron pump is better, but a minimum 5 horsepower, 60-gallon tank, that will get you through a full-size vehicle project. So I'm not going to talk about brands, but I am going to talk about CFM, cubic feet per minute. That is the amount of air volume that that compressor can produce, and it's super important. Years and moons ago, we used to spray with air pressure. My old siphon-fed guns, we needed about 60 to 70 psi at the inlet. That's crazy for today's spray guns. We need probably 20 to 25, maybe 30 at the top side, but we need huge volume. Volume is measured in CFM. We measure pressure with PSI, and pressure dictates how much volume, and the CFM capacity of the compressor dictates how much air volume we need. Paint today is like pancake syrup compared to back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, it was thinner than water. So we need CFM to break it up. So when you're sizing your compressor, look at the SCFM rating on the compressor. And then again, just like the other guy, match it to your spray gun. So, next one. At Maze W09. With the inspiration Vice Grip Garage gave me, I bought a project. Awesome. Found it in the field, 62 Scout 80. Turns out to be Unit 5 of 8 for the Border Patrol in California. Very cool. Well, that's neat, man. Sadly, no idea how it came to Texas. Well, you know, vehicles they've got a way of migrating and going kind of where they want to, and that's one of the cool things about going and rescuing a vehicle, finding out where it is, and sometimes it'll actually tell you that backstory if you peel back the layers of that onion enough. When I did Project Z Sled, it was dubious as to whether it was even a real Z. We found both build sheets, and it turns out it was a real Z28, or for my Canadian cousins, Z28, and the car over the years told its story to me, so this is kind of cool. No idea how it came to Texas. More sadly, the previous owner rattle-canned brown and yellow over the factory paint. Well, that's vomitrocious. I'd love to know what to look for when dialing in the gun for primer, color, and clear. That's a bit of a jump. So that in my nearish future, doing my research before purchasing primer spray guns. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I'll answer the question, but do this. Rattle can paint is very fragile. It's very thin, and it's way thinner than original paint that was put on at the factory. So you've got an opportunity here. You want the paint job to tell you the story. Take some acetone or some lacquer thinner, and of course with gloves on, because we want to PPE up with this stuff. Wipe off a small section. See if you can get down to that original coating. Maybe you can just wipe off the rattle can and find out what story that vehicle's telling you. Find out what condition the original paint is in, and maybe even some of the markings if it was a Border Patrol. That would be really cool to see, and send me some pictures if you end up doing that. So, I'd love to know what to look for when dialing in the gun for primer, color, and clear. So you can have the same gun body and 3 different fluid tips if you have that. So primer, color, and clear. Primer, you need a bigger fluid tip. I'm going to recommend that you have a 1.5 to 1.8 fluid tip for primer. Primer is thick. It needs a larger orifice to go through. So if you have a 1.6 fluid tip, that's a pretty good universal primer fluid tip. For top coats, I recommend a 1.3 to 1.4. So you could get a spray gun and have 2 fluid tip setups and only have to pay for 1 gun body. And it doesn't matter what the brand is, unless it's a brand that doesn't give you the option of getting an extra spray gun tip and fluid tip set, and my recommendation is to stay away from those spray guns. If they're not good enough quality to give replacement parts, it may not be the greatest gun in order to trust your expensive materials too. So again, single gun body, get 2 fluid tip setups. 1.3, let's just say 1.3 for top coats, but 1.4 is perfectly acceptable. And a 1.6 for your primer setup. That way you don't have to buy 2 gun bodies. Just clean it out in between processes. All right, so Mickey says, what's your opinion about the 3M 2.0 performance paint gun? Okay, I don't know this gun. I don't know what 2.0 means. My brain says that it's a 2.0 fluid tip, which is ginormous. It's a garden hose. That's for polyester primers. Not gonna work for paint, for top coats. Way too big and way too fat. So I've now painted 2 vehicles with it, base clear, primer, and sealer, and I'm amazed at the ease of cleanup. Okay, so I think what he's talking about, 3M has a spray gun that has disposable tips. And what that means is that when you're done with the spray project, and yeah, Mickey J 4228, correct me or if I'm wrong, but let me know also that I'm talking about the right thing. The 3M gun has a fluid tip that you can interchange. So again, just like the last question, you can have 1 gun body and several different fluid tips, and just interchange the fluid tips. And when you're done with them, you throw them in the trash. You don't even have to clean out your paint gun. So it's an interesting feature. For me, the precision of one of my other guns is, I don't know, I'm not even going to go there, but I like my spray guns with 1 gun for each purpose. That's just my ritual and my selfish thing after 35 years of being a painter. I want 1 gun for every process, but you don't have to. Anyway, so I think the 3M gun is a very interesting gun. I'm amazed at the ease of cleanup and disposable tips. Yes, as a hobbyist, I've painted about 2 vehicles over the years with my name brand siphon guns. Siphon guns, okay, so there's a tell. Siphon guns are old technology. There are places in this country that you cannot use a siphon gun professionally. There's too much VOC, there's too much pressure that has to siphon that material up out of the cup. And they're literally illegal to use because it's too high VOC. So siphon guns are old technology. They're made for thinner material. So my 3M paint guns were, okay, so I painted about 2 vehicles over the years with my name brand siphon guns. Okay, cool. So even if it's the best siphon gun that you could possibly afford, a $500, $600, $700 siphon gun, it's still old technology and not necessarily made for today's higher viscosity, thicker paints. So gravity-fed, high CFM, small fluid tip, those types of paint guns are compatible with today's materials, which has evolved over the years. Materials have certainly changed. Okay, lost my 3 paint guns in a saltwater flood. Bummer, dude. Salt water is going to be horrible on guns. Most gun bodies are aluminum. Some of them are composite. Either way, salt water is going to tank your gun. Sorry about that. The 3M Performance Paint Gun replaces them all. Okay, so if it's working for you, it's working for you. That's a great alternative. So if you're looking for, you know, a way to do this, I know some professional shooters that use those guns primarily for primers and things like that, just because it cuts down on cleanup. One of the biggest expenses of running a paint shop in a commercial collision shop environment is gun maintenance and cleanup. There's the cabinet style gun washers. You're gonna burn a lot of cleanup thinner cleaning your equipment out properly, and to avoid some of that, well, you can save some money. So that's interesting. Mickey, let me know what you're doing. So can I just get a good, okay, this is at DeWalmop 2. Can I just get, okay, here we go. I'm going to save this one for the last one in this category. So we're going to come back to DeWalmop 2. At John Martinez, 6855, could you do a video to add to the Do You Need a Paint booth on guns, especially compressor size? Yes, that's a great idea. For guys that are dialing in their shop environment, there are specific things that you need to consider. Size of the compressor, like we talked about before, matching your compressor to the size of your project, and having your spray gun jihad with all of those things. We have to have a balanced system. We have to have cool, clean, dry air. We have to have a clean environment. Now, all of those things together, just like in my walk and talk video about do you need a paint booth, all we have to do as technicians is make the chemistry happy. We have to supply it with the right amount of air. Of course, we have to have good technique, and Paintucation videos can help you with that. But we have to make our paint chemistry happy, not just sitting in the cup. We have to make the paint chemistry happy on a droplet level as it's transferring from the gun to the substrate to doing all the things that it has to do to dry properly. There's a lot of different ways to go horribly wrong with that. So what I'm going to do is design a complete episode, and we'll take, heck, maybe we'll take this section of my training center in my shop, and we'll do a mock-up. I'll give you my best recommendations on how to set up a DIY setup, and we'll go from there. Let me know if you think that would be a good episode. There's a lot of guys that are starting from the same place. Over the years, I figured out it was cost effective for me to spend the money to get a spray booth, to control my environment, to be able to do the things that I want to do with it, which include my own personal projects, but also include a lot of teaching and instructional information. But I started out painting in an open shop too. So the things that you have to consider are very, very important. And if I can help you guys do that, I think it'd be a great episode. Let me know. Throw us some comments. Do you want to see a DIY spray setup out of a shop like this, or a two-car garage? Let's go there. So yes, thank you, John Martinez 6855, for that great suggestion. So, can I get just as good a finish with a Harbor Freight paint gun as I can a name brand? This is a hot topic. There are places on the interwebs and Facebook that address this specifically, and you get guys going, oh, my Harbor Freight X gun is just as good as this gun, and the Iwata gun or the SATA gun, and I'm a SATA gun user for a lot of good reasons, and we can talk about that if you guys want to. This gun does just as good a job as this gun. This one was $100 or $150, and this one's $1,000, and I can't tell the difference. So there's a debate. It's a common debate going around, and I'm going to tell you why I use SATA equipment and why I don't use the red brand equipment. It's a difference in consistency. So my answer to your question is maybe. And I see guys that do. So maybe is ambiguous. Maybe is a half answer. And here's why it's a maybe. My SATA spray guns are milled out of aluminum. It's a high-grade alloy of aluminum. Each individual gun is fixtured and milled individually. They're not cast. The internals are not cast. They're milled precisely. It's premium equipment. It's expensive equipment. I know this, but the consistency of procedure of manufacture with every single spray gun is going to be exacting and precise. On top of that, they're measured, they're remeasured, and they're tested before they go on to the next stage of assembly. The next thing that happens is that the internal components, all of them, are hand assembled, and the gun is then tested for accuracy, for airflow, for casting imperfections and things like that. Each individual spray gun is vetted to the point to where I know 100% that when I pull that gun out of the box, it's going to be the same as 10,000 other guns that were manufactured. It's the consistency of manufacture that I've grown to count on with SATA spray equipment. And I know I can trust that. I don't have to think about it anymore. When you go to a different type of a gun, an offshore manufactured gun that is cast instead of milled, things can happen in the casting process. And I'm not saying it does every time, because people get great paint jobs out of those guns. And I'm not going to argue them. They probably do. But the inconsistency in casting process can sometimes change the way the guns spray. Also, the fact that the products and the parts of the gun that mate together, the fluid tip, the needle and seat set, it's a valve between the two components. Typically, they're made out of less expensive materials. I'm not going to say cheap materials. I'm not going to say cheap. I'm not going to say cheap paint. I'm not going to say cheap equipment. I'm going to say less expensive to manufacture materials, because there's a difference. I'm not going to dog anybody's stuff here, because like I said, I'll say it again, guys get great results from less expensive equipment. However, with those materials, you might get 1 or 2 paint jobs with it, and then something goes horribly wrong. Maybe that's a byproduct of the manufacturing process, to where the wear items, maybe they don't work so well anymore. Maybe the gaskets don't do what they need to do. Maybe the needle and seat wears out after some extended use, whereas it wouldn't in a high-grade stainless steel matched component set in an expensive spray gun. I know it's the long answer. I'm sorry. I can't shut my brain off when it comes to this, but the truth is, for me, the consistency of being able to trust and rely on equipment that has never let me down when it comes to anything other than what I've screwed up and not proper cleaning or maintenance, or it just doesn't let me down. So as a professional painter, I need that. I need that reassurance to where when I reach for that equipment, it's ready for me to use, period. And frankly, I have found over the years, when I reach for the less expensively manufactured equipment, I can't trust it. So, for whatever that's worth, there's enough things that can go horribly wrong in the painting process. My philosophy is we manage what we can manage so that we can correct and control. Okay, now I'm going to stay. It's my own quote. I'm screwing it up. So we control what we can control so we can manage what's uncontrollable. That's what it is. All right, so the cogs had to turn a little bit. I've only had 2 cups of coffee this morning. So the things that we can't control are environmental pollution, things happen in the booth. So one of the things that I can control as a technician is the quality of my equipment. So I know that's the long drawn out explanation for that. But, you know, so the answer, I'll read the question again. Can I get just as good a finish with a Harbor Freight paint gun as I can with a name brand? Maybe. Sorry. So, here's what we're going to do. A lot of questions about compressors. And is my compressor big enough? And what size compressor do I need? I'm going to show you my shop compressor. We're going to go around to the outside of the building in my compressor shed, and I'm going to show you how to find out exactly what the compressor is that you're thinking about or actually even using. It's how to read the ID tag on the compressor tank. So, let's go. So this is my shop compressor. It's a Campbell Hosfield compressor with a 120-gallon tank, and it's got a 2-stage cast iron pump, just like I was talking about. It's even got an aftercooler on it. It is a honkin' beast. But more importantly, it's got a tag on it that tells me exactly what the output is. So we're going to take a close look at this tag, and every tag's kind of the same in that they give you the same information no matter what compressor it is. So let's look at this tag and let's find our way around this. All right, so here's the model number, here's the pump number. This is good for replacement parts, voltage rating, all that type of stuff. So here's the important, okay, I was wrong. It's an 80-gallon tank. I said 120. So here's the really important, this is the meat and potatoes of a compressor, your SCFM rating. Cubic feet per minute is what CFM stands for. So at 175 psi, this one will put out 24.3 CFM. At 90, it's 25 CFM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plumb and I'm going to run probably 100 psi to my wall regulators. That way I know I've got 25 CFM running all the way up to the wall. I've got a maximum amount of CFM running to my wall regs. Now, you're going to restrict it down with your plumbing, whatever plumbing setup that you have in your shop. I've got 1 inch to my drops, to my filters, so I'm going to facilitate a lot of that CFM. As you neck it down, you can decrease the CFM, so you want to make sure and have the fattest pipe that you can from the compressor into your shop, into your wall drops. And that's one of the things that we'll address when we do the video on how to set up a home shop. Most spray guns modern HVLP or RP styled spray guns demand at least 10 CFM, 10 to 12 CFM. So I know 100% that I'm getting more than enough air, which is going to make sure that this tank fills up, the compressor has a chance to rest, and then it goes back to work again. It's called cycle time. We want the least amount of cycle time possible. So with enough CFM here, I know that I've got a long period of time before the motor kicks in and refills this tank. It's a big honking animal. So, like I said before, minimum 5-horse pump, 60 gallons of air supply, and you're going to get the CFM rating that your gun demands. So right here, if I'm buying this compressor, I've got more than enough. I need at least 12 to 15 CFM, and a 5-horse 60-gallon compressor will give you that. The aftercooler here, what that does, it's a first stage of getting the air cooler. So what that means is that the air comes out of the compressor, into the coils here, and then into the shop. Cooler air sheds off moisture. We've got an auto drain on the bottom of this, and we've got filters to get the moisture out. If I'm running a super hot compressor, guess what hot air has? Hot air is like a sauna. If you think about a sauna, you get inside this sauna and the air is supercharged with moisture because it's hot. That's the value of a sauna. You get this super moisturized thing and you sweat and all that kind of stuff. That's a sauna. You don't want a sauna in your paint shop. You want cool, clean, dry air. The more that you can do to scrub off moisture, the better off you're going to be, and the cleaner that your air supply is going to be. The last thing you want is a bunch of moisture coming through your spray gun. And if you overwork a small compressor on a large paint job, you're going to get the sauna. So keep that visual in your head. All right, let's go back inside. All right, this is a question from @Steve5657. It's regarding blending paint. And if you've worked in a collision shop, the term blending paint means a very specific thing. It means typically that you're using a 2-stage paint, a base coat, and a clear coat, and that you're blending the base color in a panel and then clear coating the whole panel. But that's not what Steve is talking about. So he's talking about blending paint within a panel, and I'm going to get into this, and this is important. This is interesting. So Steve says, here we go. How about a video on fixing a messed up mid-panel blend on an SUV or mid-quarter panel blend on an SUV? He's talking about cutting the paint off in the middle of a panel. I think, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm going down the road of what I think you mean. So I just accidentally carried the base past the blend area and up to the tape line, then cleared over it before I noticed. So he's talking about doing that repair underneath a layer of clear. So here's what I'm talking about with that. With this fender here, so there's a couple of different ways to blend. So typically, if I've got damage here, I'm going to repair my damage and then get it up to color, blend my color. There's my first coat, there's my second coat, there's my third coat, and stagger it out. And then I'm going to clear coat the entire panel. That way, we put the M&M shell back on the candy. The chocolate is the color. The chocolate is unstable. It's the shell that gives it its strength. That's my favorite way, because I'm a junk food and candy freak, of describing the process of base coat, clear coat. The only purpose of the chocolate, of the color, is to be color. There's zero strength in it. There's zero toughness, hardness. There's no UV resistance to it. All that is encapsulated in the clear coat. So in a typical blend, I'm going to prep the entire panel, stagger my base coat out, and then clear coat the entire panel to protect the disguised repair that I've done with my color coat. So, old school. We used to, years ago, and this technique still carries on, be able to do color, break it off in the middle of the panel, polish it smooth, and rock and roll, ship the car back to the owner of the vehicle, and it was a good repair. Here's the reason that we could do that. We were using lacquer paint. years and years ago. And lacquer paint, when you put more lacquer paint on it, it melts into itself. The technical term for this is thermoplastic. Today's paints with hardeners are thermoset. So we have old technology thermoplastic, modern technology thermoset. You cannot put a thermoset product on another thermoset product and have it melt into it. It's going to sit on top of it, and it's going to be a weak repair. So that's why we don't do that anymore in the professional paint industry, and the reason that we step away, that we encapsulate it all with clear coat. So it's actually one of my training videos showed the wrong process of breaking out a clear blend in the middle of a panel. And I'm going to show you this close-up, and what it is I blended it right here. I prepped it with 3000 grit, and then I staggered my blend. I used a blending solvent, and then I went and polished it back. It looked really good for about 2 weeks. I set this panel stand out in the sun, and guess what? Guess what? The weak tapered edge of this repair is showing itself to me now. I can see a hazy edge right now. 2 weeks out in the sun. How many vehicles spend 2 weeks out in this? That's absolutely, if it's a driver, this repair is going to show itself. So I'm trying real hard to answer the question that Steve put in, but I wanted to show you an incorrect way to do that. And the reason why, kind of a backstory as to why we can't get away with blending within a panel. Always, always, always prep your whole panel, stagger your base coat, encapsulate it all, put clear coat over the whole panel. And if you're bringing color right up to the edge of the next panel, guess what? Now your other panel is a blend panel, and you just got to kind of suck it up and blend into the next panel. In the collision repair shop, you may or may not get paid for that, but as best practice, as a repair with integrity, and quite frankly one that gets a warranty from the manufacturer and the shop, you can't get by with blending in the middle here. There's another way to do a blend within a panel, and it's called a micro repair. Now here's the scenario here. You can see what I've got right here. I've got, well, we've got a big style line here, right? It's a shoulder. And I know you can even see it from there, but I can super see it right here. Light is right here. It's super bright on that peaked edge, and there's a shadow down here. So what that is called in the body shop world is opportunity. The light level gives us the opportunity to break the color up on this style line, which extends all the way through the top shoulder of the fender. This shiny area right here, it's called a spectral highlight. It's where light bounces off and glints at us. So there's our our opportunity there. So when I'm doing what's called a micro repair here, it's not a blend, it's a micro repair. I'm gonna tape off all but about, and I've already goofed up my masking tape here, all but about 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to use my fine line tape, my vinyl tape, to expose only that peaked edge of that spectral highlight. And this is bugging me because I'm OCD and I have to cover that up. Anyway, so now when I do my spray job, I can blend my color wherever I'm going to blend my color, and then I can paint this whole entire panel before I set my gun down, slightly after my overspray clears out of the room while this film is still wet. Now I take my plastic tape, my fine line tape, and I take it off that whole edge. What that does, it allows that hard edge to relax and form a smooth shoulder right on top of that spectral highlight, on top of that peaked shoulder. So what that allows me to do is disguise that transition. I don't want a tapered transition like on this fender, because it's going to show me that I've done a bad repair very quickly, and it's going to show the customer that it's not the right way to do it. It's going to fail. It is going to fail, guaranteed to fail. This is way less prone to fail. It's still a repair within the panel, but you're taking advantage of that spectral highlight. Here's my question to you. As a professional technician and as an instructor, you've already got material mixed up in the gun. you've already burned up the sandpaper to prep this panel. This is a lot of work to do a micro repair on a spectral highlight, to find that opportunity, all that kind of stuff. Look here. You could probably spray this whole fender with what's left over in your gun. It's going to take you another 5 minutes to prep the entire fender. You're still going to blend your color up here wherever the repair was, and then you encapsulate the whole panel, and you don't create the opportunity for something to let go down the line or show itself. My point is this: we've been trained, us collision repair painters, to go ahead and do what makes the most sense for the customer, for the warranty, and for our own sense of integrity. Not to get on a high horse, but it's going to cost me another half hour in the shop to do this whole stake and fender instead of break it off right here. And the chance of that going horribly wrong and showing itself to me down the road, that is way greater than if I had spent the time on the front end, prep the whole fender, and just do it. Just paint the whole fender, or clear coat the whole fender. If you're doing two-stage, you can blend within the panel, clear coat the whole fender. So Steve, I hope that answers your question. I'm not trying to browbeat you. I'm not trying to smack you in the head and say you've done it wrong. I'm just saying your time ahead to prep the entire panel, blend into it, and then encapsulate it with clear coat. Put the M&M shell back on the candy. And when you look at that from the get-go, when you strategize your repair, you're going to find that that's the best way to go, and it's not going to cost you any more time. And right now, you're looking at a re-repair and a respray. That costs you 3 times. So anyway, that's my answer to the question. I hope it doesn't sound too condescending, but think about it in a best practice mentality. Best practice, ooh, let's have rainbows and bubbles coming down. But best practice truly is the best way to look at this stuff. So, more questions. Here's another question. This is from Randy Craig Brothers, 9519. So, love the one that you put clear coat in the single stage, but what is the ratio? This is an interesting question. So if you didn't see the episode where we shot the F100 for Vice Grip Garage, one of the tricks that was taught to me years and years ago is when you're using single stage paint, you can add clear coat to it to give it a little more brilliance. Also, on a technical term, you can give it more refraction. So shiny paint is shiny paint. Gloss doesn't depend on this, but refraction is when light hits the surface, bounces around, does a little dance, and then bounces back into our eyes. That's why candy paint jobs that are deep look so good to us. It literally makes us happy on some level when we have paint refraction. So what a single stage paint can be super shiny, but there's no depth to it. It's just color and gloss sandwiched in together, super tight. With base coat, clear coat, like these other panels here, there's refraction there. So you can build refraction into single stage. And this custom technique was given to me a long time ago. And if Charlie Hutton is watching this, he's going to get mad at me because we've had this philosophical debate over this technique. But I'm going to show you and answer the question. So it's what I like to do with single stage paint. And I mixed it into actually both coats on the F100, but on the Rocket Miata, I mixed it into the last coat. I had 2 coats of color, and then the last one was 50-50 clear in color. So it does 2 things. It gives it a little bit of light bounce as the light hits it, gives it a little bit more depth, and it makes it a little bit easier to polish because clear coat is easier to polish than single stage just because of the different resins, and we won't go down the rabbit hole of science in this one just yet. So the ratio that I used in the F100 was 25% clear to 75% color. Now, the way you have to do this, you have to mix your color completely, mix your clear completely, and then you just go to 3-to-1 ratio. So 3-to-1 or 25% clear on top of your color. I want to dive a little bit deeper into this because there's some techniques involved and there's some more information I want to show you. So we're going to move a little bit closer to this dry erase board. Actually, I'll move the dry erase board a little bit closer to the camera. All right, so right here, what I've got is, it's a diagram. It's a cross-section of a single-stage paint job. And here would be a strategy for a really super deep custom paint job. Now, black, you're not going to get much benefit out of it. White, you're not going to get much benefit out of it. But on something like a robin egg blue on a mid-50s car, you can really create some nice light dancing with this stuff. So what we've got here, this black represents the surface up until your prepped panel. So this would be your sanded fender. Now you've got 2 coats of 100% color. First coat, let it flash, 15 minutes, right? Let it dry, do your touch test, spray the second coat on after 15 minutes. Now we can start to do fun things with science. So between your second and third coat, you're going to allow 30 minutes flash time because it's probably a 2-coat product with today's material. So a third coat, you're pushing the envelope of outgas and solvent evacuation. You got to let it dry. As paint dries, the solvents come out of it, right? As it cures, it completely sandwiches down. So you got to allow that solvent to come out of it. And the way we do that is with controlling our temperature and with time mostly. So we're going to assume everything else is dialed in temperature-wise. So now the first coat after the third coat is going to be 50% color and 50% clear. 50-50, 1-to-1 mix. That's going to be one single coat in here. So we leave that because our typical flash time between when we're just shooting color is 15 minutes. So we double our flash time. So now we've got a 50-50 coat of color and clear. Right here, the next coat, after another 30 minutes, we're doubling our flash time. Now we've got 25% color and 75% clear. What does that do? That gives a graduated translucency, right? You can visualize this coat by coat by coat. So then we're going to leave that 45 minutes between the 50-50 coat and the 75-25 coat. We extend our flash time because we're stacking up a material that was never really meant to be stacked up like that, right? So we're kind of breaking a rule, but we're allowing that light to come out, or we're allowing the solvent to come out, pardon me. So now our last coat is 100% clear on top of it. So now we're going to let that sit. Well, heck, we're not even going to get onto this for a couple of days, but keep air moving probably overnight over top of this panel. So now what we have is 100% clear over top of graduated color down to solid color here. Now we've got opportunity for that light photon to come in here, do a little happy dance, and come back out and hit our eyes intermixed with that color, with that candied color. It's a homemade candy, kind of, on a subtle level, and it really does give a nice depth. So you might be saying, well, if you've got clear coat over top of color, why don't you just do a 2-stage? Why don't you just do base coat, clear coat? Good question. Probably a good idea that if you're going to go through all of this rigmarole, you might as well go 2-stage in the first place and build that refraction in and have a system. But if you're insisting on single stage, you want a vintage car, it's just a way that you can manipulate this product to give it a little bit more depth. So I name dropped, and I hate doing that, but Charlie Hutton is a man that I have utmost respect for. He is a serious technician. His counterpoint to this is that when we do aggressive sanding and polishing, what's going to happen is that you're going to expose these layers. And he's not wrong. So if we do sanding and polishing super aggressive like the custom guys do, starting with 800, going to 1,000, going to 1,500, going to 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, and 8,000 polished to gloss, we're going to cut through some of these layers because we're taking a lot of material off. We're going to do a live stream here. We're going to talk about some of these methods. But for now, just trust me when I say you're taking about a 1/2 mil per coat or per sandpaper grit off when you do those aggressive cuts. So what you're going to end up seeing in the right light source with the right color, darker colors will show this more, is these layers exposed. And you can literally see them sometimes. So that's the danger in doing this technique. If you're just going to nib it, if you're just going to kind of get some surface defects off of that top layer, you're never going to see that. But if you're going to really cut this thing super hard and really flatten it out from the top and do a super show car professional polishing grade, keep in mind that you can expose those layers and they can show through. So for whatever that's worth, one of my favorite sayings is that we have to know the rules. We have to properly know and understand the rules in order to break them effectively, right? That's kind of breaking rules, and it's kind of fun. And, you know, you can get a different effect. So play around with that if you want to. Or just go to a 2-stage. So The other thing I want to say is this. I was thinking about this when I was just randomly thinking, and sometimes my brain goes places that I wish I could reel it back in again. But we're talking about the inexpensive spray guns. Your paint is so expensive. You're probably going to spend $500 between primer and paint, even at the least expensive entry-level paint products. So my thought is this: if I'm spending $500 on paint, why would I not spend at least that on the proper equipment to spray it through? So for me, that's a way to qualify what you're doing. If you're going to spend $500 on paint, you should probably spend at least that on a spray gun. That's just my philosophy, and that's kind of a thing that fell into the dome here. So we're going to kind of wind this down again, but these are some questions, there's some comments that that were sent in that have nothing to do with really paint or projects or anything like that. So I want to read a couple of these off. This is from H.G. Kennedy 9471. I just wanted to read this because it had an exclamation point at the end of it. He said, "Great idea, Kevin." Thank you for that. I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys finding my YouTube channel and for helping me and affirming me that this is kind of the right way to do this. And this is something that resonates with you guys. You want to see more of this stuff. So I appreciate you saying it's a great idea. I'm stoked about it. Here's another one at BJR2379. Subscribed. I grew up on DuPont Centauri and 2000 packs. Okay, so DuPont doesn't exist anymore. Here's an interesting trivia story. DuPont, part of the DuPont Chemical Corporation, global company, they decided a few years ago that they didn't want to be in the automotive paint space anymore. So they sold off all the paint assets to a company called Axalta. You're going to see me with Axalta shirts on. You're going to see Axalta signage around here. I love the Axalta company. It's high quality paint, but more importantly, their focus on training and education closely aligns with my passion for training and education. And we're doing some really neat work together. So DuPont literally turned into Axalta. So I just wanted to clarify why you're going to see Axalta stuff all over my shops and things like that. So I grew up on DuPont also, and some of my very first paint jobs were with Centauri and the DuPont single stages. All right, here's one from Greg Turpin, 5631. What is the best way to protect the patina look? There's several different ways that people have come up with to protect authentic patina paint, rusty paint, all that kind of stuff. One of my favorites is this. It's a wipe-on clear coat from VGG. It works very well. It is a catalyzed finish in that you have to add a hardener to it. So please use the precautions. Use good PPE when you're doing this stuff because it's a catalyzed thing, you know, so we want to be proactive with PPE always. But that's a really good opportunity. There's shiny and matte. Matte finish typically lends itself to an aged finish just because it doesn't have gloss and it tends to look older. It's like this floor is probably a satin finish. So I would use a satin clear coat to really preserve it. Use a hardener in it, but here's the caveat to that. Rust on a microscopic level in that film is going to keep going. Neil Young was right, it never sleeps. And so you're masking it, you're preserving it, you're arresting it, but you're not completely stopping it. So yeah, so we can have a cool looking truck with a consistent matte finish. That's what I like to do. I've seen guys use WD-40 and all that kind of stuff, but again, that'll wash off. So I'm going to say a wipe-on catalyzed clear coat. But let me think, how else would you preserve a patina look? Oh wait. So on Paintucation Cinevi, off of my website, paintucation.com, I've got a streaming video showing you all kinds of ways to create authentic patina and how to preserve it, how to do vintage lettering, stuff like that. It's a very inexpensive streaming video that you can get off of the paintucation.com website. And let me think for a second. Is there a book? Oh, there is a book. It's called Patina, How to Create and Preserve, and it's published by Cartech Publishing. And guess what? It's chock-a-block full of great techniques on how to how to back style glass to look like vintage glass, how to do rust effects on non-metal, non-rusting substrates, how to do vintage sign painting, things like this, and including a full paint project on a VW Beetle, and it's available at Cartech Publishing. So as a matter of fact, there's a lot of resources out there, including this book. And who wrote this book? Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, so yeah, satin clear, bone up on some good reference material from Paintucation. So we're going to do one more question. Okay, no, we're going to do two more questions. User-UI 9 ounce 2IR 6H. Wow. Thanks for your channel. Thanks for watching my channel. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks to everybody. So I hope you guys have gotten some out of this Q&A. It's just really jogged the neuron paths with me, focusing on Q&A. I want to do some live stuff. I want to do more of this stuff. But really, as much as this is Paintucation by Kevin Tetz, this is your channel here. You guys have to let me know what you want to see. We're going to be doing projects. I've got a really cool one coming up that involves actually a spray and bed liner. Somebody said, can you do that on a whole vehicle? Well, guess what? It's coming down the pipe. So we're going to be doing projects like that, even some rust repair stuff. It's not all going to be paint related. I know you guys want to see that, but let me know if this, up in this business grill right here, if this is something that you want to see more of. And frankly, keep the questions coming. It's kind of what I started doing almost 25 years ago now. It's 2024. I started Paintucation in 1999 with the hope that I would be the person that could help people where someone refused to help me when I first started out. And that's the truth of it. I had a hard time getting good advice when I was first starting out as a painter, and I was hungry for knowledge and begging people for information, and nobody would give it to me. So my whole philosophy with Paintucation is to not be that guy, and I hope we can fulfill that here. So, and thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Please share this. Get your other friends over here. Come on, man. Let's make a party out of this stuff. Let's get some great information out there. Let's empower this next generation of people that want to come up into this trade. This trade has given me a career that I could never have dreamt up in the first place, all based off of being a skilled trades technician. Whether it's paint and body, it doesn't matter to me. Let's get people working with their hands. So with that, I want to say thank you, and we're going to see you. We're doing weekly long-form videos like this, so we'll see you next week. Let me know what you want to see. Later.